Well, good day to you all. How's it going? It is Tuesday, March 17th, and this is my channel, ericnoltowskiart.com. Why do I say .com? It's because I'm reading it from the thing. It says ericnoltowskiart.com. But this is my channel, Eric Noltowski Art. Today I'm going to be coloring this Batman Beyond illustration that I did, and I'm going to be coloring it with Prismacolor markers. So I thought I would do a little how-to with coloring. So that's what we'll do today. Today is day 2 of the Nina Oltowski household quarantine. My kids are going to be off of school for a good while now. Gosh, I think they're originally going to be off for 3 weeks. So that's probably going to change, but we will see. So we're taking it a day at a time, just trying to do stuff. Kids are about to go out on a bike ride or something, get out of the house a little bit, because being kept in the house with 3 kids under 10 years old can be a little challenging. So anyway, yeah, I wanted to, here, let me show you this one. This is another one I finished coloring with my Prismacolor markers. This is a Wolverine kind of dies section. But there you go. Dum, 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 dum. All right, so I got to finish this one here. Well, let's talk a little bit about colors, about marker color. So let me do a little screen share real quick. I'll show you one that I've done. So for those of you who don't know, I currently have an Indiegogo campaign going on right now called SHADOW SENTRY, Book 1 Into the Eternal. Hell has entered our realm through death's door, and heaven has a new breed of heroes. So currently funding, 42 days left, and we're almost to the halfway point of $5,000. And yeah, so excited about that. Please check out the campaign if you have not already. We've got the early bird special still. 11 more of those left. Digital download. The comic itself is only $20. You can get the signed edition for $25. Then I also posted up some prints here of the variant covers and the regular cover that you can get your hands on. There's the signed edition. Then the variant covers you can get one, you can get 2, or you can get all 3. It's up to you. You can get a 5-pack of prints for $70. And then also original artwork. You can get a headshot or full body sketch on a sketch cover edition of the SHADOW SENTRY. And then Matthew Weldon is selling his original artwork on here as well for $500, which is a pretty decent deal. Usually covers, especially published covers, can go for upwards of $1,000. So it's a pretty good deal. So there is that. But here I wanted to show you this. This is a Green Lantern sketch cover that I did. It was a commission that I colored with marker. So the cool thing about marker is if you go to any comic published before, probably any time before the 90s, pre-90s, you'll see their coloring is very flat and is actually a very good help when it comes to, see if I can zoom in on this. No, it's going to do that. There we go. Is actually very helpful when it comes to coloring with color, marker color, excuse me. Nowadays with the advent of digital coloring, there's so much you can do, but when you're coloring with markers, you're very limited. But when I look at this, I can immediately pick out, you know, the yellow from the spotlight is like a canary yellow, very bright. If you go to Wolverine's collar, it's got the same yellow, but then there's a orangey kind of hue there. That's probably like a goldenrod or Spanish orange, I think it's called. So, I mean, those colors are what you're gonna be using when you color with markers, basically. So let's go back over here. Stop sharing the screen. Let me get my camera set up and we will hop right into it. All right, got that set up. So here's our artwork, and you can tell I've already got some done on it. But I also wanted to show you, this is a pre-90s comic. This is Jim Lee's run, collected edition, Mutant Genesis, that he did early 90s. But taking a look at it, again, colors are very flat, very basic, but just a good reference tool to use. Looking at backgrounds, what colors do they use in the backgrounds? You know, the characters a lot of times are going to have red, because red pops forward, yellow pops forward. Blues are good for the background, greens, purples. But the yellows and the reds come forward a lot. So you'll kind of, it's just a good way to get an idea of your colors. And then you have your base color, this is the peach, and then you have another darker color for shadow. I typically try and use 3 colors. I use a highlight, my base color, and then a shadow. Yeah, so let me grab my markers. But this color here in particular, blue slate, is really good. This is great for backgrounds, for also doing shadows, and it also blends really good with red. You can go under, you know, put your red down, then go under it with this blue slate and create a shadow. So this is, I use this a lot, and typically try and keep 2 around because I know I go through it quick. But all right, and then let me grab, so I colored this originally in Photoshop, so I do have a digital coloring of it. So I'm going to grab that, so that way I could at least have an idea of what I did before, and I'll try and match it and show you how I'm going to match it with marker. All right, just give me 1 second. Let me grab that. Humphrey Bear, what's going on, man? Welcome, welcome. Alrighty. Dun, 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 dun. So here is the digital color version of this image. So this is the original art, black and white, pen and ink. This is what I colored in Photoshop. So, I mean, obviously in Photoshop, you can get a lot of cool gradients, a lot of effects. You can color over the inks. And so with marker, you're very limited. If you wanted to go in afterwards, like color it with marker and then go in over top of it with colored pencil, that's a great way to do some of those effects that you can't do, you know, with marker. But for now, let's just stick with marker and we'll go from there. But I'll keep this up on screen so we can kind of see what I did and see how, if you want to try and recreate it a little bit, you can do that. All right. And 2, I mean, depending on how many markers you have, I don't have a whole lot. I don't have like, you know, there's enormous sets that you can get. I have like probably the basic. This is what I have, and then I've also added, you know, a few more over the time. There's one particular commission I had, and I needed a lot of like skin tones, and so I went out and I bought a bunch of different colored pens for skin tone. So Deco Peach, I have like a light Deco Peach, Deco Pink, all things like that. So that way I could blend them really well and kind of get the desired look I want. So, bum, 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 bum. All right. So I'm gonna work on the background. Now on here, the background's really dark. So my dark blue, I have two dark blues. I have, where'd my other one go? There it is. So I've got indigo blue, and then I also have violet blue. This one is very bright. This one sits in the background a little bit more. It's not very bright. It's kind of dull, you know, like not a gray tone, but it just kind of has that effect where it will kind of sneak to the background. So that's what I want. So I'm going to use indigo blue for my dark blues for the sky, and to kind of stay in the background. And I'm familiar with, you know, most of my markers and the colors they produce and all that stuff. So if you're a first timer and you're just starting out with your colors, just grab a blank sheet of paper and put the colors down. I've also at times made myself little swatches, and I mark the colors so that way I know, okay, hey, this is what this color looks like. You know, because if you're just looking at, oh look, that's the color it should be, but when you put it down, it could be lighter, it could be darker, and stuff like that. So it's just a good idea to have an idea of what your tool is going to do for you beforehand. Now I'm kind of leaving some area here for cloud effects almost. So what I'm going to do now is create a little bit of atmosphere, and let's see. So now I already used my blue slate here. I believe that's blue slate. Let me see here. This might be a little, yeah, I think that's blue slate. So I don't want to overlap the colors too much, but I'll go like this around it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it lighter and just create a little bit of a different look. And let me blend it with this one. This is light cerulean blue. And I'm going to go over the dark area, I'm going to go over the light area, go over the whole thing, and just kind of blend it together. And this is going to create just a little bit of a different look. All right, so that way it's not just flat dark. All right, and then I'll kind of recreate that similar technique here around Batman Beyond. And yeah. Now again, I talked about using colored pencil. So if I wanted to see this kind of glow, colored pencil is great for doing the glow on an original piece of artwork. So you can color it up with your marker, get all the flat colors down, and then if you want to do glows and things like that, you could use a white colored pencil for that glow, a blue. I do have Prismacolor colored pencils, so it makes it easy for me. I could just go grab a light cerulean blue and then do that same color for the glow. All right. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Nacho Ninja, what's going on? R2D2 for life, what's going on, man? Glad you guys can join me doing some coloring. Hope you guys are all doing well. Enjoying the quarantine. Yeah. All right. So let's see here. Got my light cerulean blue. Now I also have, this is a true blue. So let me see if I've used my true blue yet. I think I've used my true blue over here. This dark, that darker blue, that's the true blue. So that one I will use sparingly. All right. I'm just going to take out all my blues and then just make it easier and quicker. So there you go. These are the colors I'll be using. So I got light periwinkle, and this is a Blick Studio pen. Light Cerulean blue. I got my violet blue, which I probably might not use too much. Indigo blue. This is true blue, and then the slate blue, blue slate. All right, so let's hit more of the background. So again, I'm going to use the indigo blue for my dark area. And yeah, so I'm just going to fade it. Once I get closer to Batman Beyond here, I'm going to fade it into him. But most of this will be dark. And for the big areas, I'm using the chisel tip. It just makes it a lot easier. But if I wanted to create, again, some different like cloud effects, I'm just going to vary the lines and then leave some open, leave some white areas so I can go in and add that. And I can kind of use like the ink as a guide for myself here. And two, if you want to make an area a little bit lighter, you could just do a quicker motion and then it kind of fades it a little bit. It's hard to get a good fade with markers sometimes, unless you're doing a lot of blending, I've found, but it's hard to get like with the same color, it's hard to get a lighter version of that color, unless you just go really fast. So blending is the best way to do that. All right. Dun, dun, dun. And you want to kind of create, cool shapes with the negative space, I guess, while you're doing the marker color. I think it's all about the cool negative space you're creating there. Make it interesting. So it's just not flat or straight. Create different shapes. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a glow because I want to go dark, but I'm just going to leave a little bit of that halo effect around his head here. Trying to do my best to keep it uniform. Just pick out some of these areas for clouds. And the reason I'm doing that, if I want to make him pop forward. So in order to do that really well is you want to have the dark behind him. So if I go too crazy with the clouds, it's just going to end up very light, and it's going to be hard to distinguish him from the background, and I don't want that. I want him to pop out forward, and so I'm going to go nice and dark. And then leave a little bit of a halo for that glow effect. And then again, I will blend this. All right, let's try that. And I can always go back and add darker areas if I don't like what I see. So let's see here. First we did blue slate, which, there it is. So I'm gonna do blue slate, go around that darker area. Again, leaving some light white area for the lighter blue. In this particular illustration actually sold on Friday night auctions, and I'm finishing it up here so I can send it off in the mail. Let me check the chat. What's going on up here? Indiegogo blue. Good call. The Indiegogo blue. Check out Shadow Sentry. Thank you, Humphrey Bear, for posting the link. Check out the Indiegogo Shadow Sentry book. Currently funding right now on Indiegogo. Check it out while supplies last. All right, so now the light cerulean blue, and I'm just gonna again just blend it all together. Going into the dark area, bringing it into the light area, it'll blend it. If you just stay in the light area, it won't blend it so much. So whatever your look you're going for, if you want to. All right, so now this halo I've created, I want that to be this light cerulean blue, so I'm going to blend it all together. And you'll see, if you can see there, see how the dark area focus is getting a little lighter. See how it's turning a little white? You can kind of see the flecks of the light color going in there. So it's blending it together. That's what's happening there. So let's get this light in front here. Get less of the shadow. And the more you go over it, the more it will blend. When it comes to coloring with markers, I'll tell you some of my downfalls. One is I leave too much white space. And then, like, for instance, so I will typically, when I color with my base color, I'll leave white spaces open for highlights. Sometimes I leave too much white space open for those highlights, and then I ended up going over it again with my base color. And so you kind of want to be selective, have a plan in mind for where you do want your highlights. I carve them out, and then I go in with a lighter color marker. But one of the things I do is I sometimes leave too much white space. I'm trying to leave less of an area for a highlight and just kind of be more, because I think what I found is your, hold on, let me show you something real quick. I have a good example of what I'm trying to say here. Is this it? Oh, that's not it. 1 second, it's over here. This is Assassin's Creed. Edward. I colored this with marker, and what I found is, the more layers or the more times you go over it, building up your colors, that's how you're going to get the best looking marker colored piece you can get. But with that said, you want to have areas for your highlights, so you can always go over it more than, a few times. You can always darken it up, but it's very hard to go backwards. So once you're too dark, you're screwed. So, I like to leave highlights, but then I do end up usually going over them more than one time, which is fine. But yeah. So, there's pros and cons to it. I think it's just a matter of practice. And, yeah, but I found the darker you can go, if you're going to do a lot of layers, that's how you get the best effect you can with the marker colors, and then also going in and adding different colors you know, in there. I have a light green. There's like a green color in these things over his forearms. Like little variations of the colors to build up, you know, the color that you want. Seems to work the best. So it's fun, but yeah. So why'd I bring that up? I have no idea, but I did. Oh yeah, the things I struggle with. One of them is leaving too much for highlights. When I think of another one, I'll tell you. But let me check the chat. Did you invite Gary for a future live stream yet? I did email him. Still waiting to hear back from Gary on that. The auction artist. What's going on? I'm not a great colorist. Well, hopefully, maybe you can use some of this to help yourself get a little better. If you're depending on what kind of colorist you are, if you're digital or traditional. But this is what I'm just sharing what I know. I don't know everything, but hopefully the little I know can help you. There is a colorist. If you guys remember, so this was like the dawn of digital coloring. This was, let me see if I can find it here. I just found this stuff online, but his name is SHADOW, I believe is how you pronounce it. He was the early colorist for all the Wildcats books with Jim Lee. He did all the early coloring for most of the Wildstorm universe. Really, really excellent colorist. And I found, so something he would do is he would print out the black and white artwork and he'd color it in marker before he even did the digital coloring, just to get an idea of what it would look like. And it's amazing because it looks so similar to the actual finished product. Just got to find out where I put these things. But I know for a fact, if you look at Wildcats, I believe it's number 10. Look up Joe Chodo marker color, and it's like he colored the whole thing in markers, and it looks so much like the actual digital coloring that he did on the final cover. But looking at stuff like that just kind of gets me pumped, and just to kind of get an idea of what you can do with marker color. And now, of course, I can't find it. Reference, nope, look at that. I just had it. Let me see if I could find it. I think it was some Gen 13 coloring. Yep, here we go. All right. So this isn't a great example. It's hold on, let me brighten my phone. Not a great example, but that is marker color, and he's printed out the lines and he's coloring it with marker. So, but he's got some, that's actually some really good gradients he's got there. But this is all marker color. So if you need some inspiration, go check out Joe Chodo and his coloring. Again, here's pages that he's done as well. See the purple in the background. You got your flesh tones, the yellow pops forward, grays in the background. You know, it's quick, but still, I mean, you get the idea. Still looks pretty darn good. Sia Ohm is another artist. She's done Fathom, and she did Lola XOXO, and she did that all with marker color, I believe, and really, really awesome stuff. So anyway, just to give you some idea of things that are out there if you want to look at for inspiration. And we'll just color that all in there. All right. So kind of seeing how the darker the background is kind of popping Batman Beyond forward there. All right, so let me do this area, and then we can go on to, I still need to do more coloring in here, and I'm probably going to darken him up. I like how, you know, he's nice and dark and he pops forward. So I might go a little bit darker on the actual, his body. Bust out my gray tones and keep going on that. Did you invent any Eric Noltowski drawing effects, or do you just follow those who came before you? Drawing effects or coloring effects? I don't think I've really, I mean, gosh, I don't know if I would know if I created something new. It's hard to say. Not much, sir, at work, mostly listening, watching here and there, learning as much as the process of making comics as I can. Awesome, man. Hey, Humphrey in action, trying to learn digital coloring. I need a colorist. Oh, Rooster Puncher, what's up, dudes? How's it going, man? All right. Maybe one day I can do a digital coloring stream, but the cool thing is you can use these basics and kind of apply them to digital coloring. So it kind of gives you a starting point and a launching point. So that way you're not just going at it like, you know, without a clue, because you got to start somewhere. And yeah, now I think I want to darken up this area a little bit. I'm just kind of go back over it, get that darker, darken these clouds. And like I said, I mean, you look back at these old comics where the colors are, you know, they're colored. You know, this, looking at it, this might be digital colors. I'm not sure. It doesn't look like, you remember when they would color on the paper with, you know, watercolor or whatever? It doesn't quite look like that. It does look digital, but just like super early digital. So anyway, looking at this, I mean, just see what they do, you know, how they're using the shadows, you know, see what colors they use in the background, see what colors they use for, you know, obviously white. You want to use white for your highlights, but also to create, you know, big explosions or light effects. Just kind of see what they did and kind of use that. You know, nowadays with digital coloring, you're getting a whole bunch more of like gradients and effects, highlights, blah, blah, blah. Like there's really no highlights in here. It's just, you got your base color and your shadow. That's it. So, you know, you could always check out this stuff. Anywho, I kind of had to learn digital coloring on my own, basically. Just kind of, I'll take something that I see that I like, and I'll try and, you know, either duplicate an effect or use the color palette. If I like the color palette, I'll just take the colors off of another, you know, piece that I think the colors are close to what I'm going for, the effects I want to get. So don't recreate the wheel, you know, see what's out there and just kind of, once you get real good, then you can start creating your own effects. But me, I have an idea in my head and I want to get as close as I possibly can to that idea, and I'll just use whatever I can to do that. So that's just me. All right, so all right, still got to do this down here. I forgot about that. Let me do that. K. Michael Russell has some great video resources for digital coloring on YouTube, but he does love to block people. Block bit people. I have not heard of him. I will check it out. Oh, and you know what? I'm looking at something her. So this stream of light, the spotlight is coming down, and it's actually coming through this area. So I might want to go less dark there, if I'm being true to the picture. And so this looks like light cerulean blue. So let's do that here. Kind of create that spotlight. All right, all right. I'll leave that white for now until I figure out what I want to do there, if I want to go darker or not. On the digital coloring one, I kind of faded it up, you know, to the light, and I have all this cross hatching and stuff here, so it's kind of what I was probably thinking. So let me. And if I'm gonna make this darker down here, I'm gonna still use the cerulean blue and then just kind of like fade it up slowly. Something like that. And then if I want to keep going with that look, I'll just fade that up. And just go all the way. All right, there we go, there we go. And again, that not having that white there, because white will, you know, draw your eye to that light spot. So having it dark will pop out what's in the foreground better. So I think I like that more. All right, all right. All right. So an effect that I'll try and get here with the markers that I did on the digital version, but you kind of see how I have, you know, his not wings, but I'll call them wings, whatever. His red wings, then you got, it's kind of like a reflected light under his arms here and here and here. So I left that red purposefully because I want to try and get that reflected light look. So, so it looks like I used carmine red light for the lighter areas here. And kind of similarly here where you have the really bright red, it's kind of like the light is showing through his wings / cape. So I was kind of thinking similarly, but I did it a little bit different. So I have it darker here and then lighter down here. So whereas here it's lighter and then darker. I just kind of decided to go that way. I love how that's super duper bright red. It's not as bright, but yeah, I don't think I have a super duper bright red like that. Anywho, so that is the carmine red light, and I'm using that same red up here for the reflection. And so what I can do, let me go over that again, just darken that up a bit. It's pretty light. So I'm gonna get the red to where I want it, and then I'm gonna blend it with the other colors to give it that gradient kind of look. All right. So when I'm trying to get a gradient, I'll use light colors. So like, let me get my markers. Oy, I can put away my blues now, but so I have these gray markers. So I have 30% gray, 20% gray, 10% gray. So, oh no, I have 50% gray. Okay, that's good. That's better. 30%, 20%. Okay, so I'm gonna use 20% first, and I'm gonna add that over here, and I'm just gonna build up the shade or the darkness and blend around that. Now the cool thing with gray, I've noticed, is gray will also dull the area that you're throwing the color down on. So if you have, like on this picture, this Assassin's Creed, right? I put down my blue, and then when I added the gray on top of it, it dulled it out. So it almost, it has a cool effect. So rather than like darkening the whole area, it almost stole the color from it. So I don't know if Copics do the same thing, but it's just something I've noticed on the Prismacolors. So just be aware of that. You'll get like, you can get like a dulling effect. All right. I'm going to go, so that was 20%. Now I'm going to go 30%. And I think the rule with marker color is go from light to dark. I think that's the rule that I've heard. Because you can't go backwards. Once you're dark, you can't go back to light. So you go from light to dark. Computer colors, though, I think the rule might be reversed. I don't know. If anybody knows, let me know if you've heard something like that. Because a lot of times when you're doing flat colors, like if you have a flatter doing your colors for your comic, the colors they're putting down first are really dark. And then you go in and then you add the lights, and you basically, you select an area, add a gradient of light color, and you go from dark to light. I think that's how that goes. Correct me if I'm wrong. So anyway, slowly building up the color here. Kind of getting that reflected light effect. All right. Shut up, phone. All right, now I got my 50% gray, and the 50% gray is the darkest color that you see here. So all these darks, that is the 50% gray. So I don't want the chisel. And now here I'm using obviously my lighter, whatever you call that. Is that the pen? This is the chisel tip. This is just the fine tip. And I'm going to leave a little bit for the light area. So because this is really dark, I'm just going to kind of use it just a little bit. I do have a blender, so maybe what I'll do is I'll pop out my blender and blend the dark into the light and see how that goes. I don't use my blender too much, honestly, but let's give it a try. And I'm going to go back over this area. So I have the blue slate that I put down first. That's showing through right here. And I kind of like it, but at the same time, I feel like there's going to be a ton of blue in the background. So if I just make him more gray and darker, again, it's going to pop him forward. So as much as I like those little highlights of the blue color, I want to just maybe darken him up a little bit. All right. Check the chat. What you guys saying? What you saying? You talking to me? Boom, 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 boom. Blockbot. Gotcha. All right. I didn't miss much. All right. Okay. Let me go in here. Color that. I missed a spot here. Where's my 30%? Let me get this here. All right, there we go. Now, something I did actually in Photoshop on this one, if you can see those little lines that I created to kind of give his costume like more of a mech, or just a different look. So what I could do is, after I'm all done, is just go in with my little whiteout pen and create those lines, which is probably what I'll do, because I have a lot of those on the digital version, but not here on this version. So if I want to color over them, though, I'm going to want to do it before I do. So do the whiteout and then color over the whiteout. If I just want it white, I'll just do the whiteout at the end. So I'm not quite sure. Again, the white is probably going to pop more, so it depends on how much I want it to pop. So let me think about it. But I do like those little extra cuts and those little extra details in his armor. I think it looks cool. A little more futuristic, and I like that. So all right. So I went to art college for 2 years. Right after high school, I went to the Delaware College of Art and Design. They did have a computer class, or, learning Illustrator, learning Photoshop. And so I learned all that. And so years later, because I took a break, went to Bible college, came home, didn't get Photoshop for probably, I want to say 4 to 5 years after that period. So when it came to getting Photoshop and learning digital coloring, I kind of had to relearn a lot of stuff. But I had a little bit of a starting point, which was nice, but I did kind of have to relearn a lot of that. Why did I bring that up? I don't know. I forgot. Jeez, oh man, I'm horrible. Anyway, so yeah, I totally forgot what the hell I was going to say. Sorry. I'll think of it again. Gosh, I hate being live. It's like you can make a mistake, but when you're doing it live, it's like, dude. Anyway, I hope you're laughing. I hope it's funny. It is kind of funny. I started to say something. I totally forgot. All right, so let me start coloring. I'm just going to do the background, I guess. I don't know if I was going to talk about the effects that you could do in Photoshop or what, but just know I had a point that I was getting to. It was going to be good, I promise. All right. So obviously you're looking at building windows. It's interesting if you go downtown, if you're near the city, you go downtown and it's nighttime, and all you're looking at are lights. So if you look at a building, all the structure, all the rock, all the stone, all the steel, whatever is, unless there's lights illuminating the building, it's going to be dark, and then all you're going to see is the windows. So yeah, I love looking at buildings and taking pictures of buildings for reference for when I do comic books. But anyway, here, these buildings, you've got like these light kind of, it's a futuristic kind of techie building. But all you're going to have, and that's why I did this, is because all you see is the lights of the building coming forward. So and I only have, so out of my blue colors, I have, let me mute my phone. There we go. I have, let me see, 1, 2, 3 light blues. I'll turn on my light. Plug in my computer. All right. There's my blue. Okay. So if I want to pop out the blues in the windows, or just keep them white, I got to use light blues. So I got the light cerulean blue. I also have the periwinkle, and yeah, I do have the blue slate, but again, the blue slate kind of is great for the backgrounds. So I've got 3 light blue colors that I can work with. Now this one, the true blue, like I said, is very bright. That's the one right there on his neck. Now the cool thing about it is it's bright, so if I wanted to pop out this light here, I can go around it like that, and that'll make it stick out a little bit. Creates a nice contrast. So that'll pop that out. Here, pop that out. So what I'll do is I'm just going to select some different areas to do different shades of the blue on, just to kind of vary it so it's not all the same. I'm still kicking myself. Why did I bring up Photoshop? I think it was just to bring up Photoshop. For the mere fact that Photoshop is great, but I did have to learn it by myself, kind of. I think, I'm trying to remember. Because when I did an internship with Mike S. Miller at Abacus Comics way back, and I remember they had, pretty sure they had Photoshop on their computers. So that's probably when I first started using it again. And I remember editing a manga comic. I think it was the Manga Bible, actually, that they were producing. And I had to go in and remove all of the, I think it was, I want to say it was Korean. I had to remove all the Korean words because we just had like the flat pages, and we had to remove all the Korean so we could put in the American lettering. And so I did a lot of, removing, but then I also had to edit stuff and like fix the artwork if I had to remove some of the artwork. So I remember doing that a lot, and that was sometimes tricky, sometimes fun, and but that was a good. And back then they didn't have the content like the fill. You can do like content aware, which is kind of newer. They didn't have that back then, so I had to basically redraw or recreate whatever I took out. But yeah, so and I don't think I started using Photoshop to color my own work until I started doing conventions, I think, which would have been much later, because at that point I wasn't coloring my stuff. And when I did Hand of the Morning Star, when Mike was doing it, actually, I think I was adding some of the tones to the pages. Let me see here. Resurrection. Nope, that's trying to see if I have the original things here. I'm just doing this just because I'm curious now. But like some of these, so this is the big tome. This is all the collected volumes 1 to 4. But Mike did the first 2 issues or volumes of the book, and I remember coloring with gray tone his pages. So I think I colored that one. And so that is probably Mike. I did this one. And coloring in gray tone is really a good lesson to try out. So you can kind of play with the highlights, play with the shadows, stuff like that. But I know it's my page because my style is very, like I did a lot of gradients. It's like has that slightly gradient effect some places. Mike did a lot of hard lines. He might have done this page. But, you know, so it was a good learning experience. It wasn't coloring, but it was adding gray tone, you know, adding shadows. Mike did this, I could tell. His is very, you know, just picking out little shadows here and there. Whereas mine is more, actually this might be mine. Like those gradients and stuff there, that could be mine. But anyway. So yeah. So that's when I started using Photoshop again. But coloring is a whole different animal. Light Cerulean blue, I think that's what I was using. I think I want to actually, where's my red? I want to pop out more things with the red actually. And one of the things I was thinking when I colored this digitally was I wanted to do kind of like a monochromatic background and then do the red in the foreground, so that way it just, the red just pops off the page. But for this, I'm thinking I can pop out some more red areas. Just because. Like here, for instance, on the building. There we go. These down here. All right. Maybe I was going to talk about college. How, if you've heard this story before, I went to the Delaware College of Art and Design. I'm from New Jersey, and I didn't know at the time that there was the Joe Kubert's School of Cartooning in northern New Jersey. And so I went to Delaware, and I mean, I knew I wanted to do comics, so I could have just gone north and got specialized training in comics. But I went south, and I got specialized training in illustration. So I should have, you know, hindsight's 2020. But anyway, I went to this art college. It was not specialized. I studied illustration. But the good thing that came out of it was just, I'm going to say, my eye was trained for just art in general. So learning how to see things as far as positive space, negative space, they definitely trained us all really well in that. So, you know, we'd sit down and draw still lifes. We'd sit down and have to recreate. We'd sit in is it a foyer? I don't know, in the lobby of our college, and we just have to like draw whatever we saw, you know, like draw the room. So, you know, we learned perspective. We learned how to see the space in between objects, so that way we can capture to the best of our ability the actual object, if that makes sense at all. Like even drawing a portrait, I mean, you can sit there and look at your face and draw your face, but when you're kind of looking at the relationship between the distance between your nose and your cheekbone and things like that. So you're training your eye to measure, you're training your eye to see what you're looking at and capturing it, you know, proportionately, but also accurately. So that was really, really helpful. So that's probably one of the greatest lessons I took away from it. But then also, you know, in relation to comics, one of the things I noticed and one of the things I love about Jim Lee is that, you know, he uses so many different effects when he's drawing comic books. So, you know, one page he's doing silhouettes, and one page he's reversed it and he's inverted it. So, you know, if you remember Deathblow, there's like feet walking down the church, and the feet are just white. You know, they're colored, but then everything else is black. So it's like he's really good about switching the technique he's using. And then even Deathblow itself. I mean, it's got that Frank Miller like super dark, gritty, lots of shadows, and you know he's cutting out the shadows with, you know, with just these crazy, you know, either inking techniques or, you know, using whiteout and just, I mean, there's just so many things he does. He's not just a one trick pony where it's like he's drawing every picture and it looks exactly the same. He's using different techniques. And so anyway, that's one of the things I admire about him. And going to art college and learning all this different stuff, it's like, okay, I get it now. I could see, you know, where you could use these different techniques for, you know, for drawing a comic book. So, you know, you got to see the good and everything, even when we, you know, screw up and go to one school and we could have gone to another, but it's all right. God knew he had a plan. So anyway, that's my story. And if I went somewhere else, you know, I may not have ended up in Boston and met my wife. I would have changed the whole history of Eric's life. It would have been crazy. So, you know. All right. This is blue slate, and I'm adding more color on the windows. Around the plane, I'm going to do blue slate because that is more of the background color. I don't want it to pop forward too much. And also going to art college, you know, I learned to color with watercolor, learned to use gouache. You know, you learn a lot of tools of the trade. And, you know, we did some comic book stuff actually in my one illustration class. Was it illustration? Actually, it might have been graphic design. No, it was probably illustration. But, you know, there's different classes we had for each subject. But the one teacher we had, he was like, he kind of saw how comics were getting big, and just like, you know, so he had us do this one thing where we drew a comic strip and just a lot of things to do with comics in general. So that was cool. But yeah, so we had a photography class. So we got to learn how to do manual photography. So it wasn't all bad. I learned a lot of stuff. But again, I knew comics is what I wanted to do. So that's why I kind of kicked myself. Because it's like, I could have just kind of cut out all the extra stuff I didn't really need and just skip right to the comic stuff. But it's all good. It's all good. All right, so it's starting to come together. Got some white areas I need to fill. Add some windows inside the windows. I'll go back with my light Carillion. The only thing with the light periwinkle is it's very, very light. So it's a good blending blue, but yeah, might not work so great on the windows. I do want them to be pushed to the background. Let me check the chat. What's going on in the chat? I use Affinity Photo. I'm still learning. That's pretty funny. I wanted to go check out the Joe Kubert school. I know a kid who couldn't draw to save his life that went there, and he's a pro now. Wow, that's cool. It's worth the money if you can afford it. Cool. And they do have what's it called? the placement, like when you go to college, you know, and you finish in a thing, and then they help you with job placement. There you go. Oh my gosh, it's so hard sometimes to think. They do have job placement like after you go through the Joe Kubert school, so that's kind of nice. But only if you go there, like to the physical school. If you do the online courses, you don't get job placement if you finish the online course with them. So he worked with the kids from Monkey Suit Press, I think, who later put out the Venture Bros. Eric, did you ever try to recreate a famous comic book cover of one of your favorite artists? I've done a few cover recreations. I did one of Captain America that Ron Lim and Jim Lee both did together. So I did a sketch cover of that. I also the one I showed earlier in the stream. I don't know if you guys saw it. I'll show you again. Give me a second real quick. I did this cover recreation. Well, hold on. Let me just show you. You'll see what I'm doing here. So this is Uncanny X-Men 141, and I got a commission to do a Green Lantern cover. So it's kind of a cover recreation, but there you have it. And that I colored with marker color as well. So yes, sir. So I've done that one. I think as far as cover recreations, that might be it. So anyway, good question, Humphrey Bear. I know I've like drawn, you know, images of characters, you know, like Wildcats or different characters. I've done that, you know, tons of times, but covers, not that I could think of. Not too much. All right, so let me go back in here. I'm going to color this halo. Another thing, I've learned is to not leave as much white showing with the marker color. White tends to just like pop forward because it's the brightest thing on the page. So I try and cover up all the white unless I really, really, really want it white, like a highlight or something like that. But it just kind of gives you a nicer, complete look with your colors versus if there's just white splotches all over. So the balance of the page looks better when it's like your light spaces are very intentional, if that makes sense. So whereas before I might leave like a lot of little highlights, you know, on my character. Like his legs right now are not finished and just is bugging me because it's all this white is just popping out, and it's like I need to cover it, but I want probably this area here to be the lightest. I want your eyeball to go here first, and I'm going to leave his eyes white. I color him red in the digital version, but actually if you go look at the cartoon, Terry McGinnis's eyeballs are white. So I will correct that mistake for all the purists out there. And yeah, so my goal is to not leave a lot of white, cover it up really nice, make it look really good. So that's my thoughts of where I'm going here. You know, even down here, yeah, my name is here, but I want this colored up too. So let me blend this all together. And maybe down here I could do the light periwinkle or something. Make it lighter, but just not white, if that makes sense. Going on an hour and 11. I'm actively working on an X-Men 141 recreation. No way. That's awesome. That's back when I was a kid collecting comics. Uncanny was one of my favorite titles. Yeah. I didn't get into comics till, late 90s, so I went back and collected a lot of the Uncanny X-Men and all that stuff. Yeah, but it's fun going back and reading all that stuff. Or like collecting, titles from the artists that I like and follow today, and just seeing their old original work. It's kind of cool. Especially Jim Lee. Yeah, I know. But yeah, Jim Lee's work on the Uncanny X-Men, probably some of my favorite stuff. That was just some really good writing. Chris Claremont doing some writing, and just all around really good, in my humble opinion. All right. My favorite Jim Lee stuff is still probably, that run on the X-Men Genesis, and then the old Uncanny X-Men stuff, and the Wildcats. And that's, although Batman Hush was pretty darn good, that was some pretty good stuff. And even when he did the, was it For Tomorrow, the Batman run, or excuse me, Superman run, that was alright too. But my favorite Jim Lee stuff is still the old stuff, not so much the newer stuff. All right, so this is all light blue. I'm going to go back in and make this darker. So I'll go, depends on how far back I want to push it. If I want to go real dark, I can do indigo blue, but wouldn't make sense because there's no indigo blue here. So I'm just going to go blue slate, and that will bring out this spotlight from the aircraft just enough. All right, and then down here too. All right, let's see. Let me try the periwinkle. Are you guys Jim Lee fans as well, or are you like Mike, who doesn't really like the Lee Meister? All right, so that's the light periwinkle. I think that works pretty good, and it might be helpful in some of these areas. It's a good light color. This chisel tip is not as good as the Prismacolor one. This is a Blick Studio pen. It's not, and gosh, look at that. It just kind of, it doesn't quite go where you want it to. But again, it's a tool that you have to get used to. You kind of learn it as you go. But let's see here. Kind of get these spotlights popped out here. All right, that kind of works. Because I don't want them super duper light. I do want them light, but not, again, super duper white, because I want the white spots to be up here. Jim Lee is pretty cool, smart too, great artist. Rob Liefeld was more about escapism, and his drawing pushed that point. True that. That's true. All right. Oh wow, I gotta hold on. I gotta scroll back up here. Missed a bunch here. How do you like the Prismacolor markers compared to Copics? I've been using the Prismacolor for a long time. So I can't really speak too much about how well they work versus the Prismacolor. They might be better for blending. That's what I've heard, I think. But I have no problem with them. I just can't afford the Copics personally, so I go with the cheaper version, and I think they're fine. I like the way they work. I usually bought X-Men, Spider-Man, Thor, and Nam, says the action artist. Loved Uncanny as a kid too. I'm doing it for a stream we're doing in a couple weeks. Nice. Rooster Puncher. I'll have to check that out. I remember when Jim Lee came on the scene, he basically took Liefeld's style to perfection, especially with anatomy. This is true. Yeah. I prefer Jim Lee's stuff over Rob Liefeld's because I feel like, for instance, because I have this handy. Let me show you. Okay. Let's take a look, folks. So, here we go. This is the Extinction Agenda. So this is some Uncanny X-Men. But this is not that. This is Jim Lee. Alright. Rob has great page layouts. Has a lot of action to his work. I just prefer Jim Lee's, the way he does the figure. Things like that. I feel like it's more finished. Now this is, you know, early Liefeld that we're going to look at, but this is Jim Lee's work, right? Then you come over here. This is Rob Liefeld with somebody else finishing, I think. Let me see. It tells you over here. Rob Liefeld and Simonson, Rubenstein. See, I don't think this was Rob's, just Rob. I think this was somebody like changing Rob's style. So this isn't a good, this probably isn't the best example then, because this is like somebody else going over Rob's work. But there's some, it might be back here. I saw somewhere. It's like this here, I think. It's like so basic. Like, look at that gun. It's like, okay, gun, shadow. Like, how long did that take him? So Lee's stuff, I think, is just more finalized, more finished. Like, you come over here, like, just everything, you know, I mean, I love the detail. I love the action. Like, look at that. Like, that, you know, he took his time on that. That's cool. And then you come over here, check out some Liefeld stuff. A lot of it just looks super rushed. You know, like, guys running, swoosh, swoosh. You know, I think it's great because it's basic. But, I don't know. I think it leaves a lot to be, a lot wanting. So this is more regular Liefeld, I feel like. You know, that's okay. Maybe a little weird looking stuff. Crazy cross-hatching everywhere. So yeah. So that's kind of why I prefer Jim Lee. I feel like you get more of the final package. So I'm going to agree with you there on that one. But anyway. Boom, 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 boom. Chart pack markers are good also. I've heard of those. I think I was going to get some of those for the nice chisel tip for doing like caricature work. Because I like that stuff there. So yeah, the action artist, I would agree with you. I think Lee's work is more, this is better to me. Jim Lee Punisher with Potts. Yep. The early stuff. Superman Unchained. Punisher was also one of my favorites, but couldn't afford more than a few titles, so I had to sacrifice. The Struggle. Got to meet and talk with Potts at length about that run. Thanks to Dan Fraga introducing us. That's awesome. Rob Liefeld is more about escapism, and his drawing pushed that point. Yeah, I think so. Jim Lee's work is a little more, while it's still a comic book, it's still more, more realistic, I think, for sure. Hawk and Dove was some of Liefeld's best work. Curious about Liefeld's new State Guys book dropping in June. Huh, I didn't know he was doing that. I might have to check that out. Lee's compositions are more thought out, definitely. I think Liefeld got so popular. I mean, he was doing Levi's commercials. His work got a little rushed. Yeah, and he started when he was 18 years old. So, you know. And, yeah, I cannot imagine being, you know, if I was 18 drawing comics for Marvel, like, I can't even imagine. And I don't think my work would be half as good as Rob's, so don't want to talk junk. I got my issues with Rob's artwork, like how like every gun or thing he's holding is like this. It's like he never shows the hands, and it could be like like a two-handed sword. You're like gripping it like this, but it's like every time it's like he covers it up, and it's like he's grabbing the same area on the sword every time. Things like that kind of bug me, but that's just me. Like if you look at the cover to X-Force #1, look at how Cable is holding that gun. So anyway, that's just it's my pet peeves with Rob's work. Dun, dun, dun. I'm a fan of Rob's Facebook page, and somebody was posting artwork, and it was it Conan? It was a chick, and like I don't remember, but like, you know, again, it was like he's holding the sword, but it's like his hands are overlapping, and his knuckles were all weird and wild, and you know, so you can just tell he's kind of like Russian, you know, not Russian as in, you know, Russian, but he was just rushing a little bit there. But that's how he's kind of always done his hands and stuff. So yeah. All right. I'm going to go darker down here because your eyeball doesn't tend to really go towards the corners of your artwork so much. So I'm going to darken this. All right. I think I am going to stop the stream soon, but before we go, did you guys have any questions as far as, you know, coloring, or have any questions about anything like that that I can answer for you? With anything, I think it's, you know, about practice and, you know, kind of learning what works, what doesn't work. And one of these days I can, you know, if it'll help you guys, I could do a digital coloring kind of stream. Just have to figure out how to do it because Photoshop's on my Mac, and I'd have to basically I'd have to video my screen, so I don't know how well that would work, but I could do it. If you want to do it, I can do it. I did it once before on showing how to do blue line printouts, so I think it went all right. If Rob could break into comics at 19, then there's hope for the rest of us. Amen, brother. Amen. There is hope. Just keep doing what you love. All right, so here I'm going to do a little squiggly squiggle on the whole building. Kind of bust out a little like a shadow effect on the building. Try it again over here. Kind of cool. I like it. I like it. And let me go dark up here. Make this darker. All right. Cool deal. I think I will stop there. All right, all right. The rest of us are going the indie route. Yep, yep. You're one of the few that does traditional coloring. Yeah, I think I did a lot of traditional coloring because I did the sketch cards way back. Not way back, but, you know, a while back. I don't think I have any to show you. But once I started doing those, you know, they wanted them in color, and so I had to do, you know, how to take the sketch cards and then actually color on the sketch cards. So I did a whole bunch of stuff like that. So I kind of had to, you know, that was a lot of practice doing a lot of cards, and that kind of helped me get better at the traditional marker colors. But yeah. So let me add some light periwinkle. I'm going to finish this area and then I'll call it a day. And two, if, you know, as an artist and you're doing a convention or whatever and you're getting commissions, you know, if people want, you know, traditional colored work. So, you know, I had Alex Sinclair. He was at San Diego Comic-Con and he was doing commissions, but he was basically, he has all these, he has artwork from Jim Lee, and he might have had, I don't know if he had just Jim Lee, but he had Jim Lee, so it's just like a black and white printout, right? And then he would color it, like that was the commission, you're getting an original coloring over, you know, like a Jim Lee. So I have a Jim Lee Superman that Alex Sinclair colored in marker color. So I'll show you that real quick. So I got this at San Diego Comic-Con, I forget how many years ago now, probably 3. But yeah, looks good. It's just marker color. And he did the little squiggle around his eyes. And then you can see the whiteout pen. Then he went over those parts of his costume to kind of pop them out. That's kind of what I was thinking of doing on the Batman Beyond pick. But yeah, a little bit of gray tone on the bottom. And there you have it. So that's kind of cool. I dig that. Alrighty, guys. I will be back tomorrow at 11. Lord willing, sometime around then. I got a little bit of a late start today, but I'll come back tomorrow and finish this up with you guys if you want to hang out again. But hope you guys are all staying cool, staying healthy. Rob Liefeld. I saw him in New York, super young, signing autographs. Didn't want to stand in line. 1990, he probably had a huge line at that point. But cool deal, guys. All right. Thanks for hanging out. Do check out the Indiegogo campaign. It is currently still funding, so if you have not already, consider backing it. Shadow Sentry into the Eternal. All right. Thank you, guys. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow.